If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to Downfall Network for more cool content.
What's up, everyone? Thralls of Metal back here again to do another discography ranking. This time we are doing the lords, the gods, the creators of heavy metal itself, Black Sabbath. I am, of course, Shredlord.
I am Rin. I am Jammin' John.
And I am Necrotic Nick.
And together we create the four corners of the... Just kidding. Together we rate a lot of excellent heavy metal, and that is exactly what we are going to do for you today.
Like Metal Voltron, because he actually was made out of metal. Yeah, pretty close.
Can I be the codpiece?
Ooh. No.
Okay. All right, I don't want to play anymore. So in 1968 in Birmingham, England, four gentlemen would band together to create basically heavy metal unbeknownst to them. Those gentlemen would be Tony Iommi, Ozzy Osbourne, Bill Ward, and Terry Geezer Butler. Now, they started off in 68 as the Earth Blues Company, later would shorten their name to Earth, and then later on would shorten the name to a different name, so that's not really shortening at all, but they would then change the name to Black Sabbath on the recommendation of Geezer Butler's love for the Boris Karloff film, Black Sabbath. So, of course, before we dive into the discography, one small thing about a member of this band that, in my mind, helped give this band certain sound characteristics is obviously these guys were all from Birmingham, steel factories. Everyone knows Tony Iommi at around age 17, I believe, before he really started touring, playing music full-time seriously, chopped the tips of his fingers off, to which he used wax or, plastic or whatever kind of bottle caps. No, please don't do that. No, it's fine. He will. You have to talk him down now. No, it's cool. Woosah. Ooh, yes. Where's your happy place?
Look inward.
Tony Iommi was Rambo before Rambo was Rambo.
Pretty much, yeah. But because of that, he did a couple things. Number one, in my mind, it's very important. He basically started using power chords. Now, for non-guitar players, what a power chord is your chord has three main notes to it, and he used just two main notes. He used the root note, and he used the fifth note. And just by having those two separately and not having a bunch of extra notes with the heavy distortion, which was a thing that was starting to become more and more prevalent as technology got better and better with guitar amplification, by having more of a high gain sound but with less notes in the chord, it made it sound more focused, more tight, and altogether heavier. So him doing stuff like that is definitely a big part of their sound. Another thing is, because of how difficult it would be at times for him to play normal gauge type strings with no fingers in the middle, he would downtune a lot, such as Masters of Reality. He ends up tuning down his guitar a whole step and a half.
Yeah, it was for string tension and less pain.
Absolutely.
And vibrato.
Because you can shake and do all sorts of crazy stuff, but also by proxy, because it's tuned down, it gives it that heavier vibe, which is why Masters of Reality has such a heavy fucking great vibe, but we'll talk about that later. But because of those two things, and then the evolution of the players within the band as well, as far as Ozzy as a frontman, in my mind, Geezer Butler is one of the all-time greatest bass players.
Yes.
And he started as a guitar player, so he had a very non-conventional way of looking at bass playing, which dived into his own style, and now he's one of the most influential bass players of heavy metal for not sticking with your basic kind of prototypical bass player style. And then Bill Ward. What's great about Bill Ward is he was never one of your traditional rock kind of drummers. He was very jazzy, very up top, and that gave a nice pocket for the rest of the band to create great rhythm, blues, and
metal.
Death-defying metal.
Pretty much, I was exposed to Sabbath courtesy of my mom. She jammed Paranoid and the first album a lot, and I just pretty much became enamored of the sound. Like, it sounded notably different than all the classic rock that I was listening to, because my mom listened to a lot of classic rock. And yeah, I was already listening to more metal, but this was just kind of discovering the root of it all, and I absolutely loved it.
So if anyone's watched my episode of the 20 albums that got me into metal, you know a little bit about my backstory as far as when I got into things like Black Sabbath. And it was much later than all these guys, just because of my upbringing.
His parents are very religious people.
The Sabbath stayed pretty holy there.
Not so black.
Not so black.
Right, it was not so
very
black.
White and pure.
And so, because of that, there was no exposure until actually much later. Actually, when I met Shred here is pretty much when I started getting into things like Black Sabbath and
Judas Priest
and Iron Maiden and like a ton of shit. And I still never really got into it because this motherfucker and I hung out way more than this guy.
Death metal.
Death metal, right. I got into death metal really big, and then Shred and I started jamming together, and I got into
Other things.
Right.
Such as
and that motherfucker on the end,
We're all motherfuckers.
dude, I've known this dude since my freshman year of high school, roughly.
He denies it, but we know it to be true.
and
thanks to yearbooks.
I'm old.
I'm 23 years old.
The lighting is very favorable.
And he jammed Pantera and Machine Head and Down and Vision of Disorder and Biohazard and fucking all that crap. And so that's how I got into music. So Black Sabbath, I was never really a big Black Sabbath fan until we hit this discography review. So when I got to sit down with this gem, which was incredibly difficult to rank, I'm gonna stop babbling, but that's what Black Sabbath is to me.
I believe that the first 6 Black Sabbath records are every headbanger's Bible. Know it, learn it, love it. Rub it all over yourself, especially the naughty bits. The first time I remember hearing Black Sabbath, I was a wrestling fan. Still am a wrestling fan. But in NWA, which later became WCW, there was a tag team called the Road Warriors. They used to come out to the song Iron Man, and I didn't know what it was. My stepdad at the time said, "Oh, that's Black Sabbath." I said, "Who is Black Sabbath?"
But your voice was much calmer.
Much higher.
Who is Black Sabbath?
I was 23 years old at the time.
The same age you are today.
I am 23 years old.
Holy shit!
In 1987. Also, our classic rock radio station in the area, FM
1047?
104.7 WIOT.
IOT.
And Buzz 106.5.
Buzz
when that
106.5.
existed.
That was more alternative.
It was more
grungy.
alternative, but it existed,
They
and they did
played
play it at one time.
They did, but by the time that came out, I was 23 years old.
Much like he is now.
Very much like he is today.
Black Sabbath is God.
Black Sabbath is God. And for me, it was a young guitar player. I started playing at around 12 years old. So I believe it was about 6 months to a year, and me and my oldest, bestest friend in the entire world, his name is Jake, we started guitar lessons together.
Jake E. Lee?
No, not that Jake E. Lee. But just as cool, and he has a way better beard than Jake E. Lee. It doesn't even come close. My Jake's beard would fucking wipe the floor with Jake E. Lee. But I digress. Anyway, Jake's parents were always very super supportive, and my parents were too, but I spent a lot of time at Jake's house because we were inseparable and we just loved hanging out. So we'd hang out, play guitar together, all that stuff. And his parents were always super supportive of us listening to music and bought Jake Paranoid on vinyl, actually. And so he had an old record player, and we played it on vinyl, and hearing some of those iconic Black Sabbath things made me a fan of Black Sabbath very early at the tenderoni age of 13. And then it just kept growing and growing from there. I started taking professional guitar lessons from an amazing guitar teacher in the area, probably the best in the area. I challenge anyone. I love him. He's a dear friend of mine, my mentor, Mr. Chuck Stoll. He also is a very big proponent of Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi, so while taking lessons from him and getting closer with him, he helped continue to grow that love for all things Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi. All right, so let's get this shindig started. So in 1970 was Black Sabbath's first release, titled Black Sabbath. Now, with this record, in October 16th of 1969, in Birmingham, England, I believe, they did this entire record, recorded it live, and did the whole thing in pretty much 12 hours, which is fucking amazing. First of all, a killer debut album. And then I believe reading interviews with Ozzy, he basically said, yeah, we just kind of recorded everything live, and then the last couple hours, they all just kind of sat at the pub and got fucking wasted while they did like the little overdubs and stuff like that. But honestly, 12 hours worth of recording to produce what would be the start of heavy metal. And It's fucking awesome.
And we're still listening to it 50
Today.
years later.
Overall, this is my number 8 album. It is a incredible album. It's the invention, basically, of heavy metal, and there are tracks on here that I still listen to this day that are phenomenal classics as far as all music is concerned.
This is my 4th. And you can put this album on and listen to the whole thing, and it sounds like one song, even though there are songs that are classic heavy metal songs, such as Black Sabbath, NIB, The Wizard. How do you not love this album? It's blues, it's rock, but it just slides in heavy metal because it is the creation of heavy metal. Beatles be damned.
This is my number 4. Pretty much everything that man just said, I couldn't have put it in better words. Again, especially being not as familiar. I mean, but even through the years, I've heard all these songs. I didn't know they were all on this album because of non-education. How do you
Deny the awesome.
deny the awesomeness of these songs? And they did it in 12 fucking hours.
What is this that stands before me?
You can't...
Oh, please, God, no!
How can you not love it? That's all I gotta say.
This is also my number 4. Literally, nothing in 1970 sounded this heavy or this evil. Led Zeppelin didn't even scratch how just atmospherically
Yes.
evil this sounded. Black Sabbath, the song. That's pretty much every doom metal band ever.
The
They borrowed.
Triad.
Yes.
You know, that's another
The
thing too.
Devil's Chord.
The riff at the end of Black Sabbath is easily one of the best Sabbath riffs of all time. The
Yep.
And Zach Sabbath's version of it, thanks to Rin turning me onto it, it gets me hard every fucking time, man. Oh, every time.
To weigh in on what Nick said too, it's not a horrible mix for 1970.
It works as a
Like,
jam session.
it does.
That's the thing I love.
But it's right. It's not a horrible mix. It really has a great sound.
Well, it was
Like,
early. It was early in the recording stages too.
I think it does noodle around a little bit too much sometimes, but I like that overall jam session feel because it was just them trying to keep the song going, and I like how it segues into the next songs. Like, these are really well-crafted songs for a first outing. Way to go. And plus, you were establishing something completely different. Again, nothing sounded like this in 1970,
Right.
except for Black Sabbath.
Your love for me has just got to be real.
Before I know the way you're gonna feel. So an incredible amount of time goes by. Just kidding. 4 months go by, and they release what is arguably one of their from a sales standpoint, probably from a
dude, for
hits
real.
on the radio standpoint.
Their only top 20 hit.
1970s Paranoid, and that has all your classics on it, your Iron Mans, your Paranoid, your Hand of Doom, your Caravan, Electric Funeral, Rat
Pigs.
Salad, War Pigs.
Yep.
I mean,
and then a bunch of awesome bands many years later covered.
pretty much all of
Everything on
these
this,
songs.
right.
So yeah, this for me is my number 5 album. Every single one is a banger. And the only reason maybe it might not be rated just a little bit higher is because every one was a banger and it was so commercially successful. Every radio station that we all grew up listening to played the ever-loving fuck out of all of those songs. So, you know, like Nick was saying before, he's like, he didn't even really have to go listen to Paranoid.
I didn't.
He already knew, and we all pretty much already knew.
This album's ingrained in my DNA. And I've listened to this one. I listened to this one before I was really listening to like rock radio at all because my mom had it and we listened to it, and it's an amazing album. It's my number 3, by the way. It's incredible. But I kind of got tired of it because literally you could turn on the radio station at any given point, you would hear one of these songs. Maybe minus Hand of Doom because heroin bad.
Heroin's bad.
Fairies Wear Boots really didn't get as much play.
But
it's
they
amazing.
never injected it, he said.
No.
I only said that they didn't inject it; they would just snort it. So evidently, there's a difference. We're not junkies. We don't shoot the shit up. We just fucking throw it up our nose.
Whatever they were talking about definitely put the needle in, though.
Yeah,
It's in the lyrics.
absolutely.
This is my number 3. War Pigs was the first Black Sabbath song I ever heard, thanks to that man on the end there. I grew up on this album without knowing I'd grown up on this album because of bands that covered it. So listening to this was nostalgia in a different way for me. And like the first 4 records, these are impossible to rank. I want to say that. And my number 3 might as well be number 1. They all might as well be number 1 until we hit like 5 or 6.
That's fair.
I ranked this album number 5, even though I've listened to it 5,000 times in my life. Paranoid is the greatest metal song I never have to hear again.
Yes.
Well put. Well put.
Iron
Dude, I love
Man
it.
is the second greatest heavy metal song I never have to hear again. The riffs, the lyrics. War Pigs is an anti-war song. Hand of Dune is a heroin song. Fairies Wear Boots is a true song. The lyrics, it's an absolute true story.
You gotta believe him, man.
Smoking and tripping is all that you do. Yeah.
Well, and War Pigs was initially called Walpurgis. They had to change it because of the satanic references that had, because it was a black magic wedding.
Yes.
Okay, so
And what the hell is it on the cover of Paranoid? Is that a guy about to skydive? Some blurry
He's got a
purple
sword
dude?
and a
He's got a
shield.
sword and a shield. And funny enough, Paranoid, the track itself, was supposed to just be filler. They were trying to figure out some kind of, song to just finish up the album, throw on there, and Tony just came up with that the bound down now, and then they wrote it in about an hour, and then it ended up being the fucking title track. So good job, Tony. Something that was supposed to be a throwaway ends up becoming the title of the album.
yeah,
A legit ripper.
And they have to play that song every time they play for the next 250 years.
But they're done playing now, so.
Well, Ozzy has to play it. Ozzy
Yep.
will never be done playing.
No.
Oh, he hasn't played in a long time, and he's canceled the last things he was supposed to play. He might be done.
The world could be ending.
So in 1971, Black Sabbath would go on to record their third studio album, Master of Reality. Now, personally, this is my number one Black Sabbath album, for the quick reason being that if someone were to ask me to give them an album encompassing everything Black Sabbath was about, this is probably the album that I would give them. It's got all the riffs, it's got all the heaviness, it's got the evilness, and to me it's just a complete package. Now what's special about this album is the first two albums were kind of rush recorded. This time they spent a little more time experimenting, a little more time with the songwriting, but back then that was kind of the pace. A lot of these bands were very record an album, tour on it. Then while you're out touring on it, you're writing the next album. You come home for a break, you're recording, you go. You record, tour, go. Record, tour, go. But they decided to take their time a little bit, and I think this really shined with that little bit of extra time. Also, going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, Tony Iommi decides that he's having some finger pain and stuff like that with his fingers. Goes from E standard, 1.5 steps down, to C sharp tuning, which adds this incredible heaviness. And what's funny is normally bands tune down for singers to sing lower as well, to be in a more comfortable register. But it seemed like they tuned down and Ozzy kept going singing up, which was kind of a weird thing. Like they tuned down to help the vocal range, and then Ozzy says, "Nah, fuck that, fam, I'm going up," and he went up. So, but that was just kind of something weird that I always noticed about that album. But Into the Void, Sweet Leaf, I mean, those are heavy metal fucking classics, and they're not deep cuts per se, but like you need to actually go past and be a fan of more than just Radio Black Sabbath to understand how great these songs are. And if you know about Master of Reality, then you're all right. in my
We can be
book.
friends.
We can be friends.
here's my argument. I had this initially at number 2, and then listening to Joe, I have it at number 1, but then I went back to number 4 and read my notes. Like, God in heaven.
John has a hard time making decisions, but we love him the same.
Here's my thing. I was into tech metal for a lot of years.
That's true.
So you had to
That's
nitpick
true.
at it. Like,
That's true.
And I nitpick at shit. So if you could have taken the recording, the mix of number 4, moved it onto some of the songs of Master of Reality, like, if you could have mix-matched some songs, again, numbers like 1 through 5 are fucking all number 1.
It's true.
Fight me.
But is there a better Black Sabbath album to get stoned to than this album?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. What?
Well, number 4 maybe. But I
That's
mean,
close, but I'd still take Master. I'd still rip a fatty to Master all
Well,
day.
you gotta rip a fatty to the first 6.
I mean, I'm gonna rip a fatty to all of them, but I'm just saying. Like,
I ripped a fatty to all of them. I mean, you gotta get.
and he
to the
doesn't mean
middle.
smoke; he means masturbation.
Yes.
he
Yeah,
cranked.
that's
He cranked
definitely
a
what I
fatty,
mean. I
and by
cranked-
fatty he means his penis.
He's hung
And
like a
I
tin
cranked
of
several
shoe
fatties
polish.
during.
and by
this-
ripping, he means he tore the skin.
And then
No, I did not tear the skin.
That's terrible. When
he
that
took
happens.
the skin and peeled it back. Now, doesn't that make you feel better?
No, it makes me bleed more.
Oh my god.
It's like peeling a carrot. Master of Reality is also my number 1. Basically, what he said of if you needed to give somebody a Black Sabbath record, and like this is Black Sabbath. It's got your up-tempo songs. It's got your downtrodden songs. It's got Solitude, which is one of my favorite mellow songs Ozzy's very sad.
Yes.
It's deep. There's a flute, a clarinet, something going on in there. Into the Void is probably the birth of sludge. That riff will peel the paint off of a shithouse.
Yeah?
It's that tasty. Unlike
The walls
shithouse.
of a shithouse.
Yes.
Unlike the walls of the shit.
Don't lick
Don't lick those walls.
Back in 71, people thought Black Sabbath was a satanic band, and they may or may not have. To be debated. But After Forever is pretty much a Christian song.
Yep.
Yes.
It's about being positive in Jesus, really, right?
Be positive in yourself.
Right.
Don't worry about the other shit.
Yeah, and they wrote it on weed, I assume. They wrote Sweet Leaf on weed.
Oh, yes.
That's a fact. That's a fact. It was also one of the first times they put little instrumental ditties as segues in between the major songs. They were still tracks, but Orchid and Embryo.
And I love both those.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Embryo breaks up After Forever and Children of the Grave. Orchid breaks up Children of the Grave and Lord of this World. God damn, Lord of this World.
Going into this was my clear-cut number one, and going through all these albums again, this is still my clear-cut number one. This has been a go-to for a while. This one was the first Black Sabbath album that I bought, not because I had heard a bunch of songs courtesy of my mom. I went out and found this one. I saw the cover, it looked sinister, it said Black Sabbath, I bought it, and then I fell in love with it. That's pretty much the entire story. Into the Void and Children of the Grave, I think that's the birth of the real metal chug. Not many other songs out there had that palm-muted chug, and there really hasn't been a Black Sabbath riff as heavy as Into the Void. That is disgusting. And it came out in 71. We're still keeping up with that riff. I absolutely love this album, start to finish. There is no weak points on here. It is sinister, it is evil, but it is catchy as hell. This is them at their finest.
So moving on to 1972, we have Black Sabbath's Volume 4. Now, this was very opposite of the feel of Master of Reality, but still an epic Black Sabbath album nonetheless. Again, we kind of return to a little bit more of the free-flowing style of Black Sabbath on some of their earlier sound, but also the songwriting has become much more sophisticated since those earlier days. Now, this is the first album actually produced by Tony Iommi. Their previous producer, Mr. Gain, I believe his name was, did the first 3 albums, but was starting to lose interest in the band's work, so he would spend more time with other artists, therefore leaving Tony Iommi and the rest of the guys kind of disenfranchised to the point where they just cut him out of the equation completely, and they decided to have Tony Iommi test his hand. Now, this album is also something that is plagued by heroin and cocaine.
Yes. And a lot of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of drug use. There was a shit ton of reckless abandon. I think actually to the point where Bill Ward is a drinker. This is where Bill starts getting to become a really bad drunk. If you know Bill Ward, he struggled with alcoholism a lot in his life. But this is where he was really starting to get bad. And he passed the fuck out. So the rest of the guys thought it was funny. They were staying at a house of John DuPont of DuPont Paints, found some gold spray paint, and actually covered his entire body in gold spray paint. Unbeknownst to them, they were dousing his entire body with nasty ass fucking chemicals, which almost killed him. No big deal, right? I gotcha, fucker.
He's fine.
No, thank God he was fine. But once again, look, the drug use is starting to rear its ugly head. However, they did produce one hell of an album. Songs like Supernaut, Under the Sun, Changes. Ozzy is once again crooning. He's still sad from solitude. Snowblind, what an appropriate track considering the current situation. Honestly, this is my number 3 Black Sabbath album overall. This is something that I can listen to from start to finish and love every track on it.
Once again, this for me, again, 1 and 2, I've already explained this in the previous one. The fact that Iommi mixed this album, you could hear it. It was mixed from a musician standpoint. It wasn't some dude that was paid to record music. It was some dude that knew music that was also, you know...
A god.
He's also
a god.
A god. And so, you know, that's why this was my number 1, but again... They're both number 1.
There's no wrong.
Yeah, there's no wrong. Almost killing Bill Ward. That's
fucked up.
You remember that kid at Bailey's party years ago when he lived in that trailer in BG. Do you remember that? That kid that they drew dicks all over when he fell asleep? Yeah.
Is there any pictures of that?
Well, they did it. They did it so bad.
I would love to put it in the
dude.
video.
He was covered from head to toe, and he had to work the next morning. Head to toe, dude. It was bad. It was so bad that his mother called
Sharpie
us.
dicks.
Yep, his mother called us to yell at us because of how bad it was.
There will be a visual reference to what he's talking about. It may not be the same gentleman, but I can find it.
Sharpie dicks.
Dude, it was so bad.
This is my number 2 album. This album is gorgeous, and it's a completely different feel from Master of Reality. This just feels more personal. I mean, Changes is about Bill Ward's divorce, sung and crooned beautifully by Ozzy. I think this is one of Ozzy's best vocal performances overall, and I think this is one of Bill Ward's finest drum performances. He gets flat out funky in Supernaut. That whole drum bit in there, he's just going nuts, beating the shit out of his drums, but it's just so awesome. And, the mix you guys brought up, I like the fact that it's almost different from song to song.
Yeah.
Like you hear, Wheels of Confusion and then
Dude,
the
Wheels
second
of
part.
Confusion is a jam.
The
too.
Straightener, it has a completely different mix to it. It's a little bit more like kind of laid back versus kind of a crunchy tone earlier on. This is a wonderful album, and I think it kind of flies under the radar for some people. Like this is one you need to jam front to back. It's amazing. Jam it, buy it, own it, love it.
Volume 4 is my number 2, which number 1, number 2, number 3, you know the deal. The opening of Wheels of Confusion.
Yes.
When, if you have the vinyl, you put the needle. God damn it! God damn it! God damn it!
Very passionate.
Tomorrow's Dream. Send me hopes I can fit in my head. Changes is the second song every headbanger who stands around a piano tries to play.
That's true.
The second song.
Yeah.
The first being Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue.
You know what? It should be Changes.
It should be the other way around.
Honestly, the cool thing about Changes is he found a piano in the studio, and he was like, I'm going to learn how to play that.
I'm feeling happy.
And then they came up with that beautiful song.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. However, as beautiful of an album as this was, this actually started the internal tensions that would eventually lead to the demise of the original 4.
They were smuggling in cocaine inside the amps. I mean, that's brilliant,
Yeah.
but that's also shady.
Yeah, they were having speaker cabinets just fucking with the back plates removed and just shoving bags of coke in there.
got my speakers. Wonderful. I'm just going to look into them over here.
But the song they wrote, which I assume was after a 2 or 3 day bender, Laguna Sunrise, is prettier than Natalie Portman.
Yes.
You can almost see the sunrise bouncing off of her golden brown hair.
I thought you were going to go someplace different.
I did too.
Keep it PG for the children. Under the Sun is probably the heaviest riff recorded up until that point. It's about Satan. We assume. Volume 4.
Natalie Portman?
Natalie Portman loves Volume 4.
I'm not as shocked by this because we actually talked about this earlier.
She loves it.
So, moving on to 1973. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Now, because of all the drugs and alcohol abuse and slight heroin, of course, the entire band started to feel a lot of jet lag, a lot of burn. They were tired as fuck. They were burned out. But in early of 73, because of all the drugs and the high pace they wanted to keep moving on to record the next album. They rented a spot in Bel Air, Los Angeles, and while they were hanging out there and doing some light touring on the side, Tony Iommi actually collapsed from exhaustion and drugs, of course.
It was
the drugs and the extreme exhaustion.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
From drinking all night.
It's tiring doing cocaine for 5 days in a row.
Yeah,
Got
no
a
doubt.
nap.
But
nap.
after that, he decided that everyone needed to take a break, right? Like, they needed some time off to relax, recharge, write. However, after the break, they still couldn't write due to Iommi's... So everybody did coke, right? But Tony really did coke. Tony really did coke.
There's amateurs and professionals.
Tony is a professional coke. And he was so burnt out. I read some interviews with him. He said they were just looking at me to start the genesis of this song, and I didn't have anything. Nothing was just in the tank, man. So they decided to go back to England and rented a castle. A little bit later,
As one does.
That is so metal.
So the thing to do to get your batteries back on track is you rent a castle in
I
England.
mean, I do it on occasion.
Which Ozzy almost burnt down because he had his boot. Yeah, his boot was left on fire
Yeah.
while he was wearing it or something.
Oh, classic Ozzy.
Well, and they also, supposedly Ozzy and Tony actually saw a ghost, a well-known ghost to the keepers of the castle, and that kind of, quote-unquote, inspired them too, because they were into the occult and all that stuff. So, however, to me, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is a damn good album. It is number 9 for me. The song Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is one of my all-time favorite Black Sabbath songs. Sabracadabra is a killer one.
Love it.
Sabracadabra.
I really love Sabracadabra.
How can you not jam out Sabracadabra?
Spiral Architect is a very unique track.
Yep. I like Who Are You?
Who Are You? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is actually...
There's a Moog.
Yeah.
Moog.
The nerd in me just came out. I thought Final Fantasy.
I have this one number 7. I think this is less experimental than Volume 4, but I think it's a bigger album. They went for a much bigger sound on this. And for that, I think it's just kind of more ambitious. Now, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, the song is a staple. I think A National Acrobat is even better. I love that song a ton. And honestly, going back, I used to hate Fluff. But going back, it's really pretty.
Yeah, it is.
Reminds me of Natalie Portman's hair.
I mean, there are some stuff that I think they just went a little too far with. Like, all right, Who Are You is just kind of weird. Spiral Architect, as much as I like it, it sounds like The Who more than Black Sabbath.
That's
And
true. But it is cool.
It's a cool song.
It is a cool tune.
But
This is also the best album cover they ever put out. Holy shit, it's awesome.
What's that?
I mean, what more can I say that these chuckleheads haven't said already? I mean, again, you know my story, and I guess another thing I would throw in is this is where also the band started to clash because of their substance abuse issues, and you could tell because some songs were a little bit more experimental than others, and
yeah, it was a little kind of stretched all over the place.
yeah, it was a little kind of stretched all over the place, which, as the history goes on, this was my number, 5? 5. Once again, in ranking 1 through 5. It's whatever.
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is the second Black Sabbath record with a song also the same title as the title of the record. Black Sabbath with the song Black Sabbath, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath with the song Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Paranoid.
The third album.
Yes!
Yep.
Who can forget the classic Black Sabbath song Volume 4?
Dude.
Sorry, man.
Wow.
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is my third favorite Black Sabbath record. The song Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is probably Ozzy's highest vocal register ever. And there's no way in hell he could sing that song past 1989. If he tried, it would be bad. Auto-tune be damned.
Well, that's why he sings it like way low and live now.
Yep.
Yeah, he shouldn't try to sing that song ever again. A National Acrobat, the riff swing
Yeah, dude.
is
Yep.
ridiculous. The song Killing Yourself to Live, the main riff sounds like a James Bond main theme song to me.
Actually, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very...
actually. Huh.
I never thought of that.
Huh.
Yeah.
I couldn't...
Yeah, think about that one next time you're listening to it. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is a great record, and I love it. It's everything. The third everything.
So 1975 rolls around, and so does the album Sabotage. Now, the reason for the album title is the year prior, they had started a gigantic legal feud with their past management. The band had accused them of stealing money, and the management company, I believe, accused them of breaching contract. So they had this big dispute, felt they were being ganged up upon or set up, hence the name Sabotage. Now, to me, all the things culminating in their lives, from addiction to, their personal lives are deteriorating, to all these lawyers and lawsuits and legal fees, there's a lot of high tension in the air, and I think that high tension is felt in the writing.
Yeah.
Songs like Hole in the Sky,
Yep.
Symptoms of the Universe, The Writ.
And The Writ being one of the few songs that Ozzy actually wrote lyrics for.
Yeah.
And they're solid.
And they
He
are
sings
solid.
his balls off on it.
And he does sing his balls off. This album is really great. This is my number 6, by the way. The aggression that is added, I mean, it's always heavy, right? But this was heavy and a little bit aggressive. It wasn't so slow-paced and doomy. This was more in your fucking face.
Correct.
And this album kicked a lot of ass for me, number 6.
Same for me, number 6. Yeah, again, you could tell what people are going through by the music they write. And this was a prime example of that. I mean, you know, I've never taken mountains of cocaine or heroin or fell asleep in a castle with my boots on. And
I imagine it would do a number to you.
yeah, you know,
God knows I wanna.
such a great album. I had a great time listening to all this.
One thing nobody brought up about the album Sabotage, the album cover.
Yeah.
Good God. I'm sure it's posted up here now, somewhere in this area.
Probably right.
Ozzy wearing a kimono. And the size of the bulge in Bill Ward's pants. Why?
Well, they didn't know it was a photo shoot or something.
Yeah.
They showed up like thinking it was something
God,
else.
it's like a can. It's
There you
like
go.
It's like this. Look.
and that's the bottom of it, or the other way around.
But the more I think
Sad.
about
It's great.
the more I think about that and them wearing
ballerina pants.
that's but like even if you thought you were showing up to something different, why in God's green earth are you dressed like
He is showing off
Fucking
his
Shakespeare.
true talent right
A
there.
kimono is a rather appropriate thing to wear anywhere, especially if you're English. Jesus, God, Symptom of the Universe is probably the heaviest song written up until that point. They seem to keep outdoing each other.
Nothing wrong with that.
Super Czar.
Super Czar.
It sounds like the main theme for an epic movie that never was written. Am I going insane?
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a fun song. It's catchy.
Sometimes you just throw a single on there to see if it catches,
it's
right?
perhaps the main theme song for a fucked up sitcom, like Friends on cocaine.
Or Mad About You on heroin.
Possibly.
Helen Hunt.
Bred with Children on LSD.
It could be. Megalomania is a bluesy ass song. It's my number 4. I love Sabotage. The Beastie Boys song as well.
This is my number 5. I like the fact that this, for the most part, was just a stripped down, angry rock album. The Writ is one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs, and that is pretty much Ozzy going off about how they couldn't get anything done. He said pretty much it felt like it took 4,000 years to get this album done because they had lawyers in the studio having them sign papers. Bill Ward was on the phone with different lawyers. It was nuts. So he wrote this whole thing about the management and like, are you Satan? Are you man? You've changed a lot since we began. But, of course, Symptom of the Universe, a nice chuggy anthem of a song. Megalomania is disgusting. Now, Super Czar kind of felt like Disney plus Black Sabbath, and mixed results for me. And then Are You Going Insane just doesn't fit. It's just weird.
It is weird.
It's just a weird song. But I love this album. I just like how they took all that anger and inspired them to write a really killer album.
So as 1976 approaches, Black Sabbath comes out with one of their most unusual albums to date, Technical Ecstasy. Now, what is weird about Technical Ecstasy is the fact that musically it sounds absolutely nothing, with the exception of maybe 2 songs like Black Sabbath or something Black Sabbath would put out. It sounds more along the radio-friendly rock that was kind of being produced at that time. For that reason, for me, I have this as my number 14. There's one song on this album that was redone during the reunion tour, and that song is Dirty Women. And the live version from the reunion album in 1998 is one of my favorite all-time songs, man. It is so fucking heavy. I can't tell you how much I love it. I could go on forever, but I digress. It's also a weird time for the band because Ozzy ends up leaving partially.
Yep.
He leaves for a while during the tour and is replaced by a gentleman named Dave Walker. Now, Dave Walker was from a band called Savory Brown. He ended up filling in. However, Ozzy does return right before they get ready to record the next album. Now, I think for a lot of fans, Technical Ecstasy is just something that they wish they could erase from the discography. However, I think it belongs. It still represents a period of who they were at the time, but they were just dysfunctional as hell, and it was really starting to show. Plus, I think they were trying to go for, okay, we did all this stuff. I really do think that they were trying for a radio hit or some kind of commercial accessibility with these songs.
I think Iommi kind of pressed the panic button, and he even said that in the studio. Like, he was listening to stuff like Foreigner and Boston. He was worried about the uprising of this punk thing. It's like, we're going to be irrelevant. We have to sound like this. This Queen band's amazing.
Yeah.
And
which is funny because if you know anything about Tony Iommi's personal life, his best friend is actually Brian May, the guitar player of Queen.
And, I mean, I get it. It's that fight to stay relevant. And, well, this was my number 18. This is a bit of a turd.
Wow.
It's
Backstreet Kids and Dirty Women are the only songs I like on this.
Dirty Women's so good.
It's a great song. It's on the wrong album.
It is. It is.
And the thing, like, in between there, you have songs that just, like, they're just trying to find a new sound. Like, Rock and Roll Doctor, dumb. Just
dumbest lyrics
dumb.
on the face of the planet.
It sounds like a Kiss song, right?
It does.
Should Rock and Roll Doctor, it should have been a Kiss song.
Yes.
But they already wrote
Dr. Love.
Yep. Making Love and whatever.
Rock and Roll All Night.
And then you got It's Alright, which sounds like the song they got on loan from Paul McCartney. And Bill Ward sings. Turns out he's a good singer.
He is a good singer.
Not bad.
But the song doesn't belong in a Black Sabbath
It reminds
album.
me a little bit of like Zeppelin.
Elton John.
But Dirty Women is a banger, and the whole story behind Dirty Women was literally Geezer Butler was walking around Miami at night and went, look at all these whores. I'm going to write a song about it. That's it. Dirty Women. So yeah, number 18 for me. It's a stinker.
I put the song at 13, which in retrospect is probably a little high because this is the worst album they ever did with Ozzy Osbourne. Not the worst album they ever did, but the worst album they ever did with Ozzy Osbourne. It's
close, but you're right. I think.
Yeah.
It's close.
They're
Very
trying to
close.
figure stuff out. It's overproduced yet underproduced. There's keyboards for no reason. There's Boogie Woogie, Rock and Roll Doctor, good lord, Rock and Roll Doctor. Dirty Women is a great song.
Love it.
Bill Ward should have put a solo album out and sang It's Alright on it. With his beard and his pigtails.
Well, didn't Ozzy check into an asylum after this record?
I mean, I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He ended up checking himself into a facility. That's part of the reason why he left too, but he was pretty much done with.
Clean up and find different cocaine. Inspirational cocaine. He didn't find it.
The song She's Gone isn't bad, but it's not enough to really save the album. It's a goofy album cover. It's a goofy album.
It's two robots fucking each other.
Yeah, it's just...
On an escalator.
It was, 1976? Yeah.
That's what
What the
robots
hell?
did then.
Nothing good happened in 1976, just the 200th anniversary of America. And they're British, so what the hell do they care? Apparently not enough to write a good fucking album. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm gonna flip a fucking table then, because I had it number 7. Now y'all, nope. I had it number
Altars
7.
of Madness all over again.
Nope.
Okay.
And you drown yourself. So here's my thing. First of all, it was reading into the backstory behind this album. It was getting into the history behind this album where I figured out why this album didn't make any sense. Like, look at all that crap that was going on in the band, in the lives of each and every one of those people. Ozzy's insane. I mean, he's kind of insane now. I love you, Ozzy.
I mean,
But
He's just burned the fuck
Yeah,
out.
he's burned out, but I mean,
The whole band
that's
is.
how you get burned out. You do speaker boxes full of cocaine, I guess.
That's true.
So, I mean, I more read into the backstory of all that happened, and I thought, like, man, these songs don't make any sense. I mean, a couple of them were kind of cool. But again, I like the mix of the record. Iommi mixed it, recorded, produced it, and that, again, shows. I like the mix of it. The songs, you know, It's Alright, and Dirty Women. I love those songs. Rock and Roll Doctor, again, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It was like listening to Morbid Angel's Elude Divinium Anus and not knowing what all those songs were doing on an album.
I like this album more than that one.
Yeah, I like this album way more than that. That makes this seem like way higher. But yeah. Yep. Number 7 and drown yourself.
So, as serious drug and alcohol problems finally reach a peak. Finally. We've been talking about drugs and alcohol. They've been keeping the charade going.
They're delicious.
They're delicious. Try some.
Breakfast is champions.
Yes, have some.
It finally comes to a pop. Ozzy does return to the band after a brief hiatus, however, causes a big stink and refuses to sing any material that was written while Dave Walker was in the band. He also starts beefing with the lyricist Geezer Butler. They start having some disagreements on things. They decide to go to Toronto, Canada, of all places. I don't know why. I think it was because it was the cheapest option.
Yeah, it was
at
the
this
taxes.
point. Yeah, the taxes or whatever it was. It was the most inexpensive way to go ahead and record this next album. So they do it in Toronto. However, at this point, absolutely nobody is getting along with anybody, and finally Ozzy Osbourne is fired by Tony Iommi through Bill Ward. So kind of a bitch move on Tony Iommi's part, but
Ozzy's fired. Bill, tell him.
Yeah. So
I'll paint you gold again. You
Iommi gives the
Big
thumbs
dick
down. You fucking cantaloupe cock. Overall, this album, however, going back to the music aspect of it, is my number 15. I like this one. It would probably be the other way around with Technical Ecstasy if I didn't have such a strong love for the song Dirty Women. But once again, this is a song that I wish could be erased from the Black Sabbath catalog. It's very poppy and radio garbage of the era. It's not good at all.
Poop.
And
It's improvisational
at this point,
jazz.
yeah,
it's
there's
weird.
a lot of improv.
Yeah, there's
It's just weird.
Like, what do you want this next part of the song to be? Who gives a shit?
Add some horns. Fuck it.
didgeridoos. I want an army of didgeridoos.
There's harmonica and horns and keys.
They've completely lost their way
Yeah.
at this point, and it is apparent. However, as crazy as this is, it's still number 15 though, because later on in the discography there are some worse stinkers for sure. But 15 for me. What about you, Ren?
I put it at 11, and I don't know why. There's two really good songs on this album.
Yeah, no,
Never Say Die is a rockin' tune.
It
is.
It's simple, but it sounds like a Black Sabbath song. Junior's Eyes, it's got some cool bass.
Yep.
I love that
And
song.
good lyrics. Air Dance has some weird jazz things going on, some piano noodles. They're just making shit up at the time, but I don't know, there's a lot worse things that they did, so it's 11.
I had this at number 16.
Yeah,
It's a bomb, dude. There's nothing.
it's a stinker.
It is.
The
Yeah.
second worst Ozzy album.
Yeah, I mean, look, the band fell apart. I mean,
It was a long 8 years.
yeah, man.
They did a lot of
The
shit.
song Johnny Blade was awful.
Ah, good God.
Weird.
What's going on there?
My whole thing for this album was, while more experimental with instrumentation, the songs overall were lackluster.
I would call this era gray Sabbath. Or at least for the Ozzy years. We get grayer later.
Yeah.
But this is just pretty much them just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yep.
And you come out with maybe a couple of songs. I like the song Shockwave. I think that's all right. Junior's Eyes is catchy. And I like the fact that it's a very personal song about Ozzy's dad passing. And lyrically, it's really solid. And the title track's a banger. It's more of a Thin Lizzy song than a Black Sabbath song, but it's a banger. But in between there, you just have them struggling to put something together. Like, Geezer, write a killer bass line. All right, let's see if we can not fuck this up.
Well, yeah, like Bill Ward sang on Swinging the Chain because Ozzy refused to sing it.
Sort of sounds like Sabbath. There's some harmonica on it.
And then Breakout was an instrumental because Ozzy also refused to touch it.
Sounds like 1970s New York.
Yeah. Like, there should be like a car chase involving Steve McQueen. I don't associate that with Black Sabbath. But, I don't know, it's just this oddity. Like, you can just tell, like, the struggle was pretty much that was it. We're done after this.
Yeah,
They were.
Yeah, honestly, there was a funny story about that, saying they were doing a tour for the Never Say Die. It was like the 10-year.
With Van Halen opening up.
Yeah, with Van Halen, like their 10-year tour or whatever.
Never heard of 'em.
And they were like, here's the 10 more years. And Geezer was saying to himself, yeah, fucking right. Like, we're not going to last another 10 years because they were fucking hating on each other. So Ozzy Osbourne exits the band, and they're looking for a lead singer. Now, a manager at the time, Sharon Arden, who you guys would know as Sharon Osbourne, just not Sharon Osbourne yet, actually introduced Tony Iommi to Ronnie James Dio. Dio was looking for a project after doing things such as Elf and, of course, Rainbow, and Tony Iommi obviously was looking for a new lead singer for Black Sabbath, so they kind of hooked them up. Also, they found a, I don't know, little unknown producer named Martin Birch, who's kind of a big deal. Produced all Iron Maiden's albums for the most part, kind of fucking sweet. So Martin Birch comes into the fold with the band, Ronnie James Dio comes into the fold, and an absolute Black Sabbath revival is born. Black Sabbath had been floundering for the past 3 or 4 albums, and finally, with this new energy they had, an entire Black Sabbath resurgence. And what's different to Ozzy than it is to Dio is the fact that Ozzy is somebody who always sings with the guitar riff, generally, right? Sings a lot with the guitar riff. Dio is more of let the guitar do its thing and he'll go on and compose his own melody. So something as simple of a difference as that really went on to make a huge difference. And I also think he pushed Tony Iommi to write a little bit differently as well, to adjust to the power and the majesty that Dio had in his voice. And that resulted in 1980's Heaven and Hell album, which is my number 2 Black Sabbath album of all time. This album is one of the biggest albums for me as a musician and as a guitar player. I adore this album. I adore all the Dio year stuff. It is personally my favorite, probably, which is the minority opinion, I'm sure, but I don't give a shit. I have a strong affinity for Tony, and I've always had a strong affinity for Dio and all his other projects and his solo work. So the combination of those two is always very special to me. What a killer album. The first song they ever wrote was Children of the Sea, an absolute fucking banger of a track. Look out! Look out! An unknown fact as well, although I shouldn't say unknown, but a small fact, I should say, is this is Bill Ward's only album with Dio in the fold. Bill Ward does this album, he leaves after this album, and they recruit Vinny Appice, who is the younger brother of Carmine Appice, who Carmine's played with everybody. Any 70s band you've heard of that toured, Carmine Appice probably sat in on drums at one point or another, so he's been all over the place. And Vinny's great too. And the great thing about Vinny is he is an incredibly huge Bill Ward fan. So when it came to stylistically, he knew all the parts, and they have a similar style as far as just excellent pocket creation and more of the excellent tom work.
He does what any drummer should do when they come in on an album. Nail the original and then add your own spice to it. This was my number 7. I went through Heaven and Hell to try and rank this one too, because I really dig this album. This is probably a big favorite for me. The thing that separates this from everything else is that, I mean, yeah, it was Sabbath, but it was Sabbath with Dio. It was a different thing. You know, you get used to the sound of the first few good albums, and then you're like, yeah, it's Black Sabbath, but it's not, but it is. But then listening to you talk about it, like, man, I'm like, why is it at number 7? But it's at number 7. I'm not rewriting all this. So the guitar solo on Wishing Well is nasty. Like Neon Nights, dude. Even the bass gallop in Heaven and Hell. That sticks with you.
They'd go on to steal that magic again. They try to use it on the song Headless Cross. It does work because I love that song. But it started. It's the geezer Heaven and Hell thump.
I had this at number 10. Now, just, letting you know, it cracked the top 10. I really dig this album. I like the change in style. It was definitely more metal than the last two, for damn sure. And they sounded confident. They sounded inspired again.
Right. Yep.
And it was a different kind of sound again because, Dio's such a different kind of vocalist. He's more of like this epic storyteller. And they really built songs around that. Children of the Sea, absolute banger.
Yes.
Lonely is the Word. I absolutely love that song. And of course, the title track is an absolute banger. It is a staple in any metal listening, I would say. But I think they did better with Dio a little bit later. But I really like how this album just pretty much jumped out and re-seized the magic and added something different at the same time. So, killer album.
This is not Black Sabbath. I said it.
They're fighting.
should add
I'm not
out.
trying to fight. Ronnie James Dio is the man. He is the traveler. I assume he keeps talking about the traveler. I assume he's the traveler. He is the singer, and he sings me a song. And it gets me.
You're not bleeding for the dancer right now.
There's a dancer and a traveler. The traveler could be the dancer, or the traveler met the dancer in his travels, or in his dancing. Not entirely sure. This is number 7. I came out like I was going to hate it, but it's number 7 out of all the Black Sabbaths. It's just, they should have changed the name to me. They should have changed the name.
I argued with myself.
Tony Iommi may or may not be Black Sabbath, but Black Sabbath is 4 dudes. But this is awesome.
Yes.
I love this. Children of the Sea. I see the misty morning
On the edge of time.
Die young. Lonely is the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long way to nowhere, and we're leaving very soon.
I was jamming that on the way here.
To the dark side.
Lady Evil.
She's a magical, mystical woman.
I love this album. It's just not a Black Sabbath album to me.
Well, you said Black Sabbath were 4 dudes. Ronnie James Dio kind of short, so they're 3.5 now. They're 3.5 now.
3.5 dudes. He's
3
another guy doing
3/4
this.
dudes.
They should have just been like, all right, Dio, you're in the band, and now we're calling this Dio. We're your band. He just came in and took it over. It doesn't sound like Black Sabbath to me, but it sounds awesome.
Yes.
Black Sabbath is awesome. This sounds awesome. Conflicted. Number 7, though. Great songs. Heaven and Hell is probably the best non-Ozzy Sabbath song. It is the best non-Ozzy Sabbath song.
Debatable.
It's up there.
He sings a song. He's the singer. It's just good.
If you do him a wrong, you're a bringer of evil.
I miss you, Ronnie.
The devil is never the maker, and the less that you give, you're a
I
taker.
wanna put Ronnie in my pocket.
He'd fit.
I am only like maybe 1.5 inches taller than him.
He's decomposed by now. You're
Yeah, you're definitely way
Yeah.
taller.
But Ronnie James Dio is a way better singer than Ozzy Osbourne. However, Ozzy's a dirty fella. And so is Black Sabbath. I want dirt. I want nasties.
He wants the nasty.
Not sword-wielding dragon slayers. Shields and swords.
So only 1 year later, they decide to do the follow-up to Heaven and Hell, and it is incredibly successful as well. It is the Mob Rules album. Now, the title track, Mob Rules, was actually the first song written for the album, as it was written for the movie Heavy Metal. An incredible soundtrack, an incredible song, and to me, an incredible album. This is my number 4 Black Sabbath album of all time. Songs like Sign of the Southern Cross is one of the best that they've ever written. Once again, they just took the amazingness of the Heaven and Hell vibe, and they altered it slightly to be a little bit more, I don't know, it sounded just a little bit darker, a tinge darker, and it continued on with the greatness that is the Iommi-Dio combo for me.
Yes.
I absolutely love this album. And then finally, Vinny Appice as well is on drums full-time. However, after this album would exit, I think, damn near everybody, except for Tony. So, but this album was incredible, and this would end up being the second of 4 total albums that Ronnie would do with Black Sabbath. So,
I rank this at number 10. Not too many songs stand out, but it rocks. Mob Rules, obviously. It's solid. Yep. It's solid. There's nothing bad. But again, it's not Black Sabbath to me. It rocks. It's awesome. Ronnie, Tony, Geezer, Vinny. Should have called it the other thing. But it's great. Not bad. It's not...
No,
I don't want to shit on it, but I gotta fart on it a little. If you listen to Fools,
The Mob Rules.
listen to this album. It's good.
I had this at number 9. I really dug this album. As I got to this point in the discography, I was ready for something like this, especially coming off of Heaven and Hell. Over and Over definitely sounds more like early Sabbath.
Over and Over.
It's
does
dark
it not have one of the most dramatic, beautiful fucking guitar
lead.
solos that Tony Iommi's ever done?
Yes.
He
I
is.
wrote Tony tearing up the lead.
Yes.
Tony is
It's nasty.
putting his fucking whole heart and soul into
Yes.
that motherfucker, and
Yes.
it is beautiful. The
Yes.
solo to Over and Over is disgustingly beautiful, and Dio's vocals are disgustingly beautiful. And Life's Only Made of Paper.
Yeah.
It
Yep,
gets in your feels.
It's the best
and-
song on the
oh,
album.
Man,
Sign of
it's
the
strong.
Southern Cross. is
Sign of
good,
the
though,
Southern
too.
Cross is fucking. Oh, dude, it makes you want to fucking stab
And
a baby.
Falling Off the Edge of the World reminded me of Maiden at some point. in the game.
Yep,
Yep,
It's because
100%.
fucking the riff is moving, man.
There were some
Yeah.
chimes in it, maybe a gong.
Yeah, definitely. Vinny Appice
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
big gong. If you've ever seen him live,
Yeah.
he's just like Alex Van Halen. He's,
Yeah.
I mean,
he's
'cause
got gong.
at this point in the game, for me too, I kind of had to get to the point where, like, well, Ozzy's gone for a minute. What else are they gonna do? I mean,
Ozzy was doing other.
Do you
awesome
really
things.
want to quit the band? You know, you really want to disband, or you want to keep going? Let's keep going. So at this point in the game, I've already bought into the fact that it's gonna sound a little bit different. But as far as those two, like Heaven and Hell, I could probably actually switch with Mob Rules. I could make Mob Rules number 8 and Heaven and Hell number 9. I liked Mob Rules more than Heaven and Hell Hell was a badass album too. So there you
Dio
go.
was the man.
He is.
He is.
I am also of the school of thought that Mob Rules is a little bit better than Heaven and Hell.
Yep.
This is my number 8. I like the fact that it's a little bit more raw, it's a little bit more in your face, and Sign of the Southern Cross is the best song that Dio did with Black Sabbath.
Yes.
I love
Maybe.
that song.
Maybe.
Love
Maybe.
it. It's dark.
Maybe.
It's creepy. The synths are very appropriate. I love the song Voodoo. Voodoo has such a great bass line.
Yeah,
it
dude.
just moves. And Turn Up the Night, it's like a sequel to Neon Nights.
It is.
It's a kick-ass sequel to it. So it's one of those rare things where, you know, the sequel is just as good as the original. But this album is absolutely killer. This is my favorite one they did with Dio, and I could go back and jam it right now and have a damn good time.
Yep, correct.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Nothing.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
So in 1983, Born Again comes out. The recruit Ian Gillan of Deep Purple to come in and do the vocals, which was kind of a weird marriage for me to begin with.
He's a madman.
This would be the last album with Geezer Butler for a while, and then Bill Ward would do the studio drums for this album, but a drummer named Bev Bevins, what a name, ends up being the touring drummer for that album, and a gentleman named Robin Black produced this. To me, this is not Black Sabbath to me. The production was very bad.
Oh, God.
It's my number 16
poop.
album. Yeah, this is not Black Sabbath to me. I did not enjoy damn near anything on this album, and it is hard to say a lot of positive things about it. However, I know during this time, their personal lives were fucking out of control, and they were doing some crazy off the wall
Well,
shit.
now the mix isn't totally their fault, as they blew some speakers while they were recording and didn't know it until they got to hear the masters, and they were like, what in the hell is this? So that led to it. But I mean, this is my number 18. This record blows. Ian Gillan lives in a fucking tent, refuses to actually associate with the band.
They tried to blow him up, almost killed him.
Yep, yep.
That whole relationship was super weird and awkward from the beginning.
This is number 18. It's a hot pile of meh. Just not. It. Who cares? Who cares? It sounds like a B bar band made a record. The song Hotline sounds like an ugly stripper's dance song. Digital Bitch is fast-paced meh, and he says bitch in it.
It's dumb though.
Awesome.
Dude,
That's-
Zero the Hero is poop sauce.
I mean,
I
Cannibal
actually
Corpse
like that one
covered
a
it.
little bit.
Cannibal Corpse
Yep.
covered it at one point, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
the music, the vocals suck, but, Stonehenge was spooky noises.
Now, I will say
just-
the solo on Keep It Warm is pretty solid.
it's
The
a nice
guitarist-
riff.
That's it.
The lyrics aren't good. The bass was okay.
Born Again, more like Snore Again.
Snore again.
Oh.
Born again, you should have been aborted.
I had this at number 15. There are a couple of songs I like on it. I like Disturbing the Priest, and Zero the Hero is not bad. Title track's pretty cool. Digital Bitch sounds like a bastardized version of Highway Star. Ian Ian...
He tried.
You know, he tried to destroy shit. All right, the song Trashed, the opening track, is literally about Ian getting blind drunk at a pub, coming back to the mansion that they were recording at, pretty much just taking Bill Ward's car and driving around a go-kart track and wrecking it in a nice fiery wreck. And he just walked out unscathed and was like, sorry about your car. And then they wrote a song about it. Disturbing the Priest is about them pretty much annoying the church next door, and him actually, and Ian actually going out for beers with them later. So yeah, he just wrote about stuff that actually happened, but this is just a goofy album.
Yep.
Stonehenge, the whole little bit in Spinal Tap, is courtesy of this album. They even painted up a little person to look like the Devil Baby. And I guess he broke his leg on the stage too. It's just this album cost so much money to make. They may have like bankrupted the label too. Like it was a disaster piece.
Yep.
And the music is of the same quality as the album cover, which if you're looking at the album cover, it's bad. So yeah, this is number 15. It's kind of fun and goofy, but mostly it's just bad.
So we just got through Born Again, and you think to yourself, my God, this can't get any worse. But pump the fucking brakes, because it just got worse. There's a certain friend of ours, I won't quote him by name. Brody.
He knows who he is. And his name is Brody.
And his name is Brody. And he actually tried telling me that this next album is Black Sabbath's best album. And at first I thought he was joking, but then he said he was serious. If there is a single person on the internet that has the 7th Star, which is the next album, my number, I switched it late in the game, this is my number 19 Sabbath album, almost dead last by one. This wasn't even supposed to be an album of Black Sabbath. It was supposed to be a Iommi solo album, but they didn't think it would sell as an Iommi solo album, so they forced him to do this Black Sabbath. There is literally no original members of Sabbath in this version right here, except for Tony Iommi himself. Glenn Hughes, famous bass player, singer.
Great singer.
Deep Purple, Black Country Communion, Iommi solo albums later on. Great singer, great bass player. He was there. You had Jeff Nichols on the keyboard. Black Sabbath would now have a keyboard player. A guy named Dave Spitz on bass, and Eric Singer from Kiss and other fame on the drums. So basically, this album is like Foreigner meets 80s cheese. There is nothing Black Sabbath about this to me at all. And I have to think that my cohorts will absolutely agree with me on this.
Yeah, this is number 19. This is a pile of hot, steamy garbage. And again, the vocals are decent, but it's not for Sabbath. The 7th Star guitar solo may be a redeeming factor. The Danger Zone starts pretty sweet, but it's not.
But it's
and
not.
it's
There
not,
was a second
it's not
Danger
Kenny
Zone.
It's not Kenny Loggins. Although
There's
I wish
no
it
highway
was.
to the Danger
If they
Zone.
would have thrown in Kenny Loggins on this record, it probably would have
No, it
beefed
wouldn't.
it up.
No, it wouldn't have. No saving it.
Yeah, no, it's a pile of hot garbage.
This is number 20 for me. The worst thing that they ever called Black Sabbath. The song No Stranger for Love sounds like a montage song for a shitty action movies from the 80s. And I like shitty 80s action movies. Didn't save it. The song Danger Zone is not the song from Top Gun, which makes me sad. Because Kenny Loggins is way cooler than this album is.
That's probably one of the few times I'd say that.
The last song on this album is called In Memory, which should be dedicated to the memory of Black Sabbath. Because Black Sabbath at this point was dead. And this is not Black Sabbath.
No, sir.
F this album and fuck everybody who likes it. Your mother's a whore. Sorry.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I think this is the heaviest album that REO Speedwagon ever put out. And oh wait, shit, no, it's Black Sabbath.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's,
REO's
yeah.
next.
Oh,
Discovery.
okay, all right, yeah.
This-
This is number 19. This is the most un-Sabbath thing that has ever been. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so 80s, and it's like all the wrong kinds of. It's like No Stranger to Love. It's like some cheesy like love scene in the action movie.
Yeah.
It's not like the cool fun song that Heart Like a Wheel or Danger Zone was supposed to be. Nothing about this album is cool. It didn't even feel like it was a vehicle for Tony Iommi. It felt like it was a
sad.
vehicle for Glenn Hughes. And the production is so awash in everything 80s that you barely notice that Tony Iommi is on it. Like, the guitars sound thin. The only guy that's in Black Sabbath, and he's the least prominent thing for the most part.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I can't get over the fact that this album exists. It's yeah.
It's dead to me after I listened to it.
Glenn Hughes, killer vocalist. And if you want to hear
Yep.
Glenn Hughes and Tony Iommi, just listen to Fuse, because that's a banger. It's awesome. This, bad.
Should
Don't.
never have been called Black Sabbath.
Yes.
After the shitfest that was the Seventh Star, Dave Spitz and Glenn Hughes exit the band. Originally, the singer they were going to have is a gentleman named Ray Gillen, rest in peace, who would try out and start to be the singer originally, but then ends up losing the spot to Tony Martin, the vocalist, and ends up starting Badlands with Jakey Lee, which was Jakey Lee from Ozzy's project after he left Ozzy Osbourne. Also, Bob Daisley of early Ozzy Osbourne fame steps in to handle bass duties as well. Then we get the 1987 album, The Eternal Idol. Now, for me, The Eternal Idol is okay. It's number 18 on my list. A couple tracks that capture the Sabbath vibe for me that I got in. Let's see, what was that one? I always forget the name of it. Ancient Warrior.
Yeah,
that's
That
it.
was
Yeah.
one of
riff.
the few I
Ancient-
had.
Yeah,
Ancient
it's an
Warrior.
interesting riff.
Yeah. Ancient Warrior is really cool. Nightmare's
Yep.
okay.
Other one.
The vocals don't really fit on Ancient Warrior.
Tony Martin's a great singer.
He's a great singer. I don't think this album he gels with the rest of the band and the songwriting as well as he does on some other albums. So yeah.
It was the 80s. We'll just go with that. Yep.
My favorite song is Scarlet Pimpernel, which is an acoustic instrumental. that tells you anything. I don't know. The title track kind of sounds like Sabbath. It's dark and spooky. He's a good singer, but meh. I don't know. Number 17, not as bad as others, but pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
I'm never gonna listen to this ever again. It's just how it is. It's just the way that's
I
gonna
don't.
go.
I don't blame you.
You know, Glory Ride is a boxing movie montage song.
A lot of montages lately.
A lot of that's what they did. They're like, the woman went away and she don't like me no more. But hey, wait a minute, I'm training, so
Jokes on her. She want me back when I take that fucking title.
go to win. I
The
just
sports event, and then she'll want me, and she'll be like, please, can I suck your pee-pee?
the 6th track, Nightmare, describes what this album is.
What?
And it was made for Nightmare on Elm Street
It was
3, I think.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
It's no Dream Warrior.
Actually,
No,
it's
it's no
not.
Dream
But
Warriors.
it's not bad for what it was. Spooky keyboards and all, but
Ooh.
God, Jesus!
Can we just say this?
Why did the '80s had? Why?
Why?
Yeah, wow.
God,
There we just
damn it,
I
Tony!
asked
Your
that
mustache is
question.
out of control.
Yeah, it's number 16 for me. Could be 17, could be 20.
Ah.
Again, it's funny. Like the middle section of their discography kind of is like the complete polar opposite of the first 5-6 albums, where you can
Mud
rate.
butt.
You can
So
rate,
for those
right.
of you who want to complain about Dio not being Sabbath, you have a lot to be fucking thankful for as we get into the midsection of this doughboy.
Yeah,
I don't like this guy.
what's the most interesting thing I could say about this record? The models on the album cover had to be hospitalized after the photo shoot because of the toxicity of the bronze paint.
Did they not learn
did not
the
learn
first
from
time
Bill
they
Ward.
spray painted Bill Ward?
Right. And
With
almost
paints
killed
and
him.
all trauma, you'll be fine.
Oh.
He lived. He
Why are
lived.
those two vomiting? They should be fine.
Yes.
Oh, the paint! Oh, we fucked up
Did we
again.
not give you enough cocaine?
Sprinkle cocaine on them, they'll be fine.
Oh, that's right. You're 92 pounds. Bill Ward was 250 pounds. I'm sorry. Here's
Sorry.
a copy of this shitty album.
I'll sign it too, look.
This will take
There
care
you
of all
go.
your troubles.
Love the gold titties. I had this at number 16, and it's pretty much carryover of 7th Star with a different lineup. Honestly, like, all right, the main thing about the 80s Sabbath is man, it does not lend itself well to Tony's playing
Yes, it doesn't.
or production. Like even what he is playing behind this wash of 80s
None of it
synths,
holds up.
Synth
yeah,
keyboard
It doesn't hold up.
he just feels out of place in his own band, and that's just kind of.
He was going for
Shitty.
a style of songwriting that was not him.
I mean, like the nicest thing I can say is like, well, it's a little bit better than Seventh Star.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tony Martin's a good singer. He's
Yeah,
just not
he is.
the right singer for going for gloomier stuff.
Sure.
No, hot, stinky beans and franks.
So as Ryan stated, the last album was quote unquote Stinky Beans and Franks. It was actually so much Stinky Beans and Franks that Warner Brothers decided to drop them from their label. It was a lot of Stinky Beans and Franks.
Decisions had to be made.
Yeah, decisions had to be made. Luckily, a smaller record company called IRS was able to schmooze Tony up and get them to sign with IRS Records, which would release the next album, which would be 1989's The Headless Cross. Now, we have Bob Daisley now leaves, and we have Lawrence Cottle comes in and does the session work. However, they eventually tap Neil Murray to come in and do the tour, who is the bass player for famous guitar player from Thin Lizzy and solo album Gary Moore. Also was in Whitesnake for a little bit. Also, as stated before, Tony Iommi, one of his best friends, is Brian May, guitarist of Queen, who actually has a guest solo spot on here on When Death Calls.
And that solo is pretty solid.
It is
song.
solid. Yeah, it's
I like
strong.
that song.
tasty.
To me, Headless Cross was vast improvement over the Eternal Idol.
Over
Yeah.
farting in a bucket.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was a vast improvement. The title track, The Headless Cross, is really cool. It has some vibes of that Heaven and Hell era
Yes.
of Black Sabbath.
Nightwing's a good jam.
Yeah, to me, it's my number 12 Black Sabbath album. It's definitely decent, middle of the road, and I think that this time around, Tony Martin's vocals lent themselves and gelled with the songs a little bit
A
better.
little better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my number 15. They were trying to be spooky in the songs. Some of the bass was a little bit better in the mix. Brian May helped out in When Death Calls. Kill in the Spirit World. It was another 80s montage song. Call of the Wild, nothing exciting. Black Moon, it was neat. Vocals had a little bit more room to breathe, but again, it was the last fart after a horrible bout of diarrhea.
Sure.
The last part after
No.
a horrible bout of diarrhea.
That makes sense.
That's a moist fart.
You know, Nightwing sounded like Sabbath
Yes.
a little bit.
A little bit.
It had a little bit of things, some cool leads. But me, I probably won't ever listen to this ever again either.
I'll listen to the song Headless Cross. I like that song.
Yeah.
And Nightwing.
Yeah.
I like Nightwing
Yeah.
The
too.
guitars were a little thin in that, but it was
They
a
were.
decent tune.
They were.
And fast forward to Brian May's solo on When Death Calls.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, pretty much.
Um,
Just fast
yeah.
forward.
You know,
Yeah.
this for me was my number 15. Here's my thing. Again, this is it was kind of musically solid, but it was just further veering them into another band that wasn't Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of my take. Like, four schmucks could have wrote this album.
Right.
Right. And been like, okay, that was kind of cool. There's nothing really magical about this album
No,
either.
there's no magic.
There's nothing.
It sounds like a band that plays in front of 35 people every weekend at the Whiskey and Dive bar.
That's like every band I've ever been in.
Yeah, but these guys suck.
I had this at number 11. Surprisingly, I actually liked a good chunk of this.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it went from the stupid 80s montage to it's more doom-laden. Actually,
Yes.
Oh,
sounds
yeah, it's spooky.
closer to something you'd hear from Candlemass, and I love Candlemass. When Death Calls, one of the best songs they did in the entire Tony Martin era. I really like that. Brian May definitely contributed big time. Devil and Daughter, I really like that song too. I like the fact that they went for the doomier feel, and I think the fact that they went on a smaller label was like, all right, well, we're not trying to prove ourselves to the big record execs and trying to write some stuff for the radio. Let's just write an album, and this one came out a bit better. So yeah, I'd actually might pick this one up. This one wasn't bad.
I like the Headless Cross album. It's definitely not in the top 10, but
No,
it's
no.
not too far off. not terribly far off. It's middle of the pack for sure.
Yeah.
I would like to say his vocals work a lot better with slower songs.
Yes.
And there were some slower tunes on this album, which just the 80s cock rock just did not work. But when they brought it down tempo-wise, the vocals kind of soared a little bit better, and it wasn't the worst pile of shit
That's ever been shitted from a butthole.
by the god himself, Tony Iommi.
And again, to stay a band for this long at this point, after going through that much bullshit.
At this point, it was just,
I mean, yeah, but I mean, they could have abandoned the name.
they
but
should have. God
I agree.
damn it, they should have.
I agree.
Perpetually trying to adapt to all
Right.
the different stuff that was coming out too, and still retain Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Right.
It's difficult.
So 1990 was an interesting year for Black Sabbath. They had just released Headless Cross not too long ago, and all of a sudden they decide to release a very interesting album. And I'll go out on a limb, and I think you guys would agree with me. This is the most adventurous, unique album in Black Sabbath's discography. Of course, we are talking about 1990's Tear. This album is very Norse mythology-centric. However, they claim that this is not a concept album. They just use that. This album is very keyboard-heavy.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
keyboard-heavy, and it actually almost has a power metal kind of Viking... I don't know how to put it, but
It feels epic rather than doomy.
yes, it feels more epic rather than doomy.
Celtish-ish.
The only thing, though, is feels good to me
Throw it out.
should not have been on there at all.
Mellow Sexy Down by the Fire.
But for being like a ballad, I mean,
Of course, we had, yeah.
Tony sang his balls off.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
The solo makes me want to take my pants off.
It doesn't matter. That's not that song had no business
Yeah,
being on this album.
Oddly enough, I wasn't wearing pants when I heard that song.
that makes it better.
Strangely enough, this would be Tony Martin's last album for a minute with Black Sabbath, as another famous face returns. However, this Tear right here is my number 13 album on Black Sabbath.
I had it at number 12. I actually kind of like this one just because, I mean, it kind of reminded me a lot of like dark synthwave stuff because the synths were super
Very
present on
prevalent.
this. But they were really cool at how they layered them, and it definitely gave it an epic feel. And it's definitely a very different album for them, and I kind of like the fact they were a little bit more adventurous. Now, Feels Good to Me can f right off. Just get
It was
off
Mellow Sexy Down by the Fire.
mellow bullshit. But it's kind of similar to Headless Cross as far as like, just they're reinvigorated. They're trying different stuff here. They're not trying to adapt to whatever's going on. They just want to write a good album, some good songs. And I think they did that for the most part. It's a pretty decent album. I really liked Anno Mundi, The Sabbath Stones, really good. The transition from Odin's Court to Valhalla, fantastic. But yeah, it's an interesting album.
I had it at number 12. I'll put it this way: after the previous 3 albums of garbage, this was a good start to come back. Like, the production gets a bit meatier again. It starts to have a little bit more sound and feeling into it. The keyboards, while disgustingly present, did create a different kind of atmosphere for them. I like the drum intro and Heaven in Black. It was a good pickup from where they were. So.
I put this at number 16. I don't know, there was some cool stuff. Jerusalem had a cool chorus. There was a cool drum pattern. The Battle of Tyr it was a Nordic keyboard instrumental. That was fun. Valhalla sounds like if the TV show Vikings was shot in the 80s. That would be the opening theme song. So you got that going for you.
I can see
Which
it.
is nice. Feels good to me, felt good to me. No, it didn't. Not really. Not so much. It's alright. That's okay. It's number 16. I don't know. Knock it off, Tony.
Moving on to 1992, this is an excellent year for me as a Black Sabbath fan. Cozy Powell, he leaves because he busted his pelvis. Ouch.
Horses, right?
Ouchky bibbles. Ouchky bibbles.
Happens.
Yes. In is brought Vinny Appice again. Vinny Appice comes back. Also, Geezer Butler comes back.
Yep.
And
Thank
also,
God.
thank God, Ronnie James Dio comes back.
Thank God.
And we get 1992's Dehumanizer album, which is my number 7. I absolutely fucking adore this album. To me, songs like Computer God, Time Machine, the production was incredibly heavy. The guitars were incredibly... This was the Black Sabbath album that we had been waiting for probably since the Mob Rules.
Better part of a decade.
Yeah, for the better part of a decade, and it delivered on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Time Machine, I believe, was in the Wayne's World 2 soundtrack.
Yeah.
One of the Wayne's World soundtracks,
One of the Wayne's World.
I believe, and I'm pretty sure it's 2. And this album is just full of cut after cut after cut. I fucking adore this album. One of my all-time favorites.
This is my number 9, and I have to say this is quite possibly the heaviest Sabbath album. Everything about it sounds more modern, too. Like, the production is all about just the heaviness. Tony Iommi's guitar tone is monstrously crunchy. Not fuzzy this time, crunchy. Like, it has some real meat to it. TV Crimes, that nice kind of galloping D beat to it. I absolutely love that song.
Very strange music video.
Yes.
Too Late. Sins of the Father, particularly. After All the Dead. This is an awesome album. I mean, I would have ranked it higher, the early Ozzy stuff.
Right, right.
Amazing. But this is just a killer one. I picked this one up on a whim years ago in a record store, and I was like, Black Sabbath's still around. Wonder what they sound like. And like, holy shit, this is heavier than the earlier stuff. That was good, but heavier. And I like the fact that, everyone just brought something to the table and made this the heaviest album possible. Even Dio sounded grittier, and everything was darker on this album. I was like, dude, yes. So, solid album.
Yep. This is my number 10. I agree with what Nick said. Again, bringing Geezer Butler back too, and Dio, and just, getting 2 awesome people back after a myriad of crap.
Very weak material.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Very low energy material.
We're just different.
Loving Mob Rules as much as I liked that record too. Bringing back that lineup to write another record was the best possible thing they could have done. Letters from the Earth is super heavy. Again, the Sins of the Father, that guitar solo in Sins of the Father is nasty.
He's the man.
He was on point.
Yep. Too Late's a banger. Buried Alive has great riffs in it. Yep. And again, I probably would have ranked it higher if it wasn't for the beginning of Black Sabbath. Ozzy and those albums are king. So, but yeah, it's a badass album.
You know what made this album better than the last several? Besides Dio and Geezer? Very little keyboards.
That is true. Yes.
Get the keyboards out of Black Sabbath.
You're out of there.
You put my keyboards in my Black Sabbath. You put my Black Sabbath in my keyboards. Oh, Jesus Christ. Dio is back, and yes, it sounded like Black Sabbath. It felt like Black Sabbath. Well, the Dio Black Sabbath. Again, you know me. I don't think it sounded like Black Sabbath without Ozzy, because weird guy. But it was sounds like a band. Doesn't sound like an 80s montage thing. Good songs, thought out songs. No keyboards, very little keyboards. Yes.
Yeah.
Watch the TV Crimes video. It's very silly. Very weird. Skateboarding and portable TV with a VCR combo.
Dio's
You ever
hacked
have one of those?
He's hacked the TV.
Pretty
He's
awesome.
in there.
Is he? And I'm going to sing to you. Yeah. Number 12. Did I say that? Number 12. Not great. Could be worse. That's good. I like it.
So the return of the Glory Days was very short-lived, as in one album short-lived. Vinny Appice...
Short like Dio short.
Yeah,
Yes.
like Dio short. Vinny Appice exits. Bobby Rondinelli enters, and in walks in Tony Martin again. Now, this next album is 1994's Cross Purposes. Cross Purposes, to me, was a weaker version of Headless Cross.
Headless Cross Purposes.
Yeah, it
Headless Cross Purposes.
Yep.
to me it really missed the mark. To me, it's my least favorite Tony Martin album of Black Sabbath era, only only with Eternal Idol higher in the not a fan scale. This album did not do too much for me. It is my number 17 album. Aside from maybe one or two tracks, I believe Eyewitness is kind of like And God, I can't even think of any other songs that I really care for that much off of it off the top of my head. Cardinal Sin was cool, but yeah, absolutely nothing to write home about. They went for something, and in my opinion, they kind of whiffed on it.
This is my number 14, and guess what? The keyboards are back. Welcome to the keyboards. We're Black Sabbath. Hey. Just more. There's some songs on it. Virtual Death has a cool opening riff, but who cares? Dying for Love has opening lead sexy time, but again, who cares?
That ballad is so
Dude,
cheesy.
it sounds like softcore porn from Cinemax.
Just Cardinal Sin, is it keyboards or strings?
It's the shit. You know what, you led me to somewhere.
Yeah.
That is the soundtrack to Skinamax when you're 12 years old.
Dude, 100%.
And Playboy is scrambled out on the cable box,
Yeah.
but you get fucking Skinamax where there's no penetration, but you see everything.
There's gyration.
There is gyration.
Yep.
There
That's
is
what that reminded me of.
motion in the ocean.
Yeah.
I was sitting there jamming it. I was like, dude, I need to go home.
Anyone have a tube sock?
Right?
Or a towel they don't like.
It was my number 13 or 14 or whatever. It doesn't matter. Pretty much, again, ranking these records in the back half is a hit or a miss, and it doesn't really matter. It wasn't in the top 10, and I mean, it just don't. Why? Why a keyboard?
They're everywhere.
I have a problem with keyboards in metal anyway.
I understood the keyboards in the 80s, but this is in the 90s.
Yeah, they
now.
were in the 90s.
Knock it
The
off.
mid-90s. Let's not the early 90s.
We're over the
And Virtual Death reminded me of Alice in Chains.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
The vocal
Yeah, I got
harmony.
that too.
The
It
vocal
was
harmonies
interesting.
in
It was
there.
interesting.
But I mean, it was the 90s, so it made sense.
It was
but I
cool.
mean, like, just
Not Sabbath, though.
No.
Immaculate Deception also reminds me of a riff that's in a Pride and Glory song, and I forgot to look it up before I got here. But
It had an odd tempo.
yeah, it reminds me of something Zakk Wylde would have written for Pride and Glory.
Okay.
Actually, if this came out in 94, Zach put out Pride and Glory in 94.
Oh, well, that makes total sense then. And then Evil Eye with Eddie Van Halen. Song was kind of heavy, but I mean, again,
Eddie couldn't
why?
save it.
Why?
Eddie couldn't save it.
No.
Why would you bring back the Suck lineup
Gotta
when
keep
the
that
record
machine
before
rolling.
you had one of the better lineups they've ever had?
The last record must have sold good. We got to keep this turd afloating.
I had this at number 13, and the thing that I don't like about this album, well, I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about it. It's at 13. It's a regression. It is a regression.
yes. Yeah,
they
fell
put
back.
out a banger of an album.
Yes.
And they just kind of regressed back. And I know Tony had better songs in him.
Yes.
It just, I don't know, he went back to his comfort zone with those 80s synths and the more commercial vocals. It's just, it's Headless Cross Part 2, but it has none of the heart of Headless Cross. It's there. It's a place filler, and then we're just going to move on through the 90s, I guess, because yeah, that's the nicest thing I can say about it. There's a couple of decent tracks on it, but Dying for Love? God. Stop. You know what? Just stop singing about love. Stop it. You're Black Sabbath.
Right, you obviously
You're
don't
not-
know what love is if
you're
you're
not-
making this.
Your love for me has just got to be real.
Yeah. That's the only love we like.
Before you know it, I'm gonna feel
My boner.
not
Yikes.
yours.
Not for this album.
Nope.
No
Not at all.
boners on this album.
It's actually
It sucked
it's
back up into
turtling.
me.
Yep, it is turtling.
Yep.
As we speak.
Flaccid purposes.
Flaccid turtles. You fuckers want to talk about regression? Well, let's talk about regression. 1995's Forbidden. Now, this fucking album should have been Forbidden because it is terrible.
A raging pile of hot garbage.
It is my number 20.
Yep.
It is clear cut. It's not even close. The one thing I will applaud the band for is they thought they were doing something good, but remember, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. They went out and Body Counts, guitar player Ernie C., they tabbed him to produce this because they wanted a little bit more of a modern sound. However, in my opinion, they totally tried to commandeer Black Sabbath, turned it into Rap Sabbath. We've got Ice-T doing some fucking rapping, and Tony Martin's doing some spoken word, and they're all just, this is not Black Sabbath. This should be erased from the discography. It is an all-out disgrace, and I have absolutely nothing good to say about this album, so I'll stop.
It's number 27 for me.
There's future albums they haven't released yet.
It was just so unbelievably awful that just took a bunch more albums with it. It's a piece. I don't understand. Why would you want to do that? I love Ice-T. I'm glad they put him in a song, but not in Black Sabbath. It's just like that Ozzy and the Post Malone crap. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand why people do this. It's a pile of...
Sometimes people take chances because they want to merge genres, right? Sometimes you take a chance, and I understand that, and I appreciate it, but, I mean, just because you do it doesn't mean it's going to be a success. And this was not a success.
No.
It was the fight to stay relevant. Again, to a different crowd.
I'll be honest.
More edgy.
I skimmed through this album. I heard the first couple songs, and I was like, first of all, the mix is garbage. I don't like that.
I like the mix better than Cross
drums.
Purposes.
It's really like...
Guitar-wise, yes, for me. Yeah.
It's really, like, polished. It's got a real... It's not good.
I think Ernie C's whole thing was he wanted to dry it up. He didn't like all the reverb
Effects, yeah.
and... It was like, dude, we wanted to sound like a natural...
Tight and crunchy.
Yeah.
I
crunchy
applaud,
album.
but remember...
I give Ernie C, because he got a lot of shit for the mix, I give him credit. I think the mix
nothing
was
against Ernie C.
better.
It's just they tried something, it didn't work.
Oh, but the music's so bad.
It is bad.
It's my number 20 as well. Yeah, the Illusion of Power. I think Ice-T just showed up at the studio and said, I'm going to do a song, and no one told him no, because he's Ice-T.
Right.
And he's scary. He's awesome, but he's scary. And, like, some of this is just like, oh, God, get a grip.
Not the Aerosmith song.
No. But, yeah, the whole thing is just cringy in the sense that it's trying to be edgy. Like, we're not your dad's Black Sabbath. We're new Black Sabbath. We're edgy. We talk about dark things like chains and stupid shit. It's dumb. It's just dumb. It's insulting to the legacy.
I put this at number 19. It's not quite as bad as Seventh Star because Ice-T is on it. If Ice-T was on Seventh Star, it might have made it a little bit better.
I want to know how he fit on that album. I almost want to hear it now.
I want to hear it. Ice-T can come in on any song.
Through the streets. He ain't no motherfucking stranger to love, y'all.
Ice-T, if you're watching this, and I don't know why you would, cover a song on Seventh Star. Curious.
Ice-T
I
can,
cried to your motherfucking heart, man.
Ice-T can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
But this album is also, it's a huge pile of not ever going to listen to it again. Barely sounds like Sabbath. There's not that many keyboards. That's good.
It didn't take away, but it certainly didn't add anything.
Sick and Tired had an opening that was okay into a weak verse. Solo sounded like Black Velvet. Uninspired rock, cock rock, a little bit of heavy here and there. It's don't even bother.
Yeah, just
Listen to the Ice-T track because it's Ice-T. It's hilarious. He just comes in like, oh yeah, here we go.
And-
yeah, bring it. Give me more Ice-T whenever you can. It's delicious.
Tony Martin's vocals definitely did not blend well with this
No.
songwriting
No,
as
but
well.
but really, I mean, if you're gonna give Ice-T one song, give him all of them because
Yeah, Ice-T should have been the vocalist for Black Sabbath.
really, yeah. I mean, at this point, why
I've
not?
been fine.
Because Tony Martin was definitely not a good choice for all of the
particular
content on this album. So you might as well just give it to Ice-T.
That is
because
correct.
if you would have given Dying Love to Ice-T, it would have been.
I'd give Ice-T my dying love if he asked me for it.
Yeah,
He might kill you for it.
Well, that's his prerogative.
It's true.
I don't think he will. He might.
There's only one way to find out.
Don't disrespect him.
So after that horrendous shit fest, a lot of years go by where Black Sabbath lays dormant. 11 years later, in 2006, however, they start to take on a project of a Black Sabbath greatest hits of the Dio era years. So those guys get back together, the original Dio lineup with Geezer and Vinny Appice, Tony and Ronnie, and release 3 new songs for this greatest hits: Ear in the Wall, Shadow of the Wind, and The Devil Cried. Then, because of the success of that, they ended up getting together that lineup again, and they wanted to release it as a Black Sabbath album. However, due to a very nasty woman, she's very tremendously nasty, very nasty, Sharon Osbourne, super nasty, said that they could not use the name, so they decided to go with the album name that was popular, Heaven and Hell, and they released in 2010 the album The Devil You Know. Now, we decided to use this album in our discography rankings, unbeknownst to John until the very last minute.
Yeah, until like today. I had no idea. So.
I will actually put this album as my number 11. Once again, the Dio years are very personal, near and dear to my heart. My only complaint is there could have used a couple more standout tracks, songs like Bible Black, Adam and Evil, Turn of the Screw. If they would have included those first 3 that they had written for the Dio years onto this album, it may have gone up higher. It would have made the album much stronger in my eyes. But nonetheless, this would be the last studio album that Ronnie James Dio would ever record before he passed away. And I believe the song Bible Black is it's probably his last masterpiece as a vocalist. That song is amazing. If you've not heard it, you need to do so. It is Dio on top of his game, very late in his life and cancer riddled, but he still belts it out and it's amazing.
This is my number 9. This, I believe they should have called themselves Heaven and Hell after Ozzy left, no matter what. Well, only for Dio. They should have named it Tony Martin and the Farting
Leprechauns.
Birminghams. This album is... The production is killer. Tony's guitar tone is massive. Geezer's bass is pulsating through the cut of the mix. Breaking Into Heaven is Butler, Appice, Dio, and Iommi done correctly. It's sludgy. It's slow. It's fantastic. Bible Black, as he said. Adam and Evil is the classic Sabbath sound with Dio. This is a great album. It's better than 8-9 other albums that they call Black Sabbath. And this isn't even called Black Sabbath. And it shouldn't be, but...
You want to say it. It's all right. That's close enough for me.
Yep.
Before he says anything else, how do you feel, Necrotic?
Those other albums should have been called...
Stop it!
Let him have his moment.
Oh,
He's
sorry.
struggling.
I'm
He's
sorry.
struggling.
Tony Martin's a piece of shit!
Tony, you're all right. But anyway,
He's okay.
I had this at number 14. And honestly, I think it fell for me namely because this was the same lineup that recorded Mob Rules and Dehumanizer.
That's what made it awesome.
But I don't think it lived up to those 2 albums. I love the production musically. Vocally, I think they really compressed the hell out of Dio's voice.
Well, you gotta understand, he was fucking dying.
He was
He was
fucking dying,
And he was
man.
also older, too.
And dying. of stomach cancer,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
what a vocalist uses.
This.
He needs
Like,
his
yeah.
diaphragm.
Compress! I can't! There's cancer!
There's a giant... it's a tumor! I can't compress it! It's a tumor!
I'm 5
should be
foot
fucking-
tall and 3 feet
But-
of it is cancer!
A lot of the choruses kind of missed the mark. Like,
For
Double
you,
the
maybe.
Pain and Rock and
Double
Roll
the Pain's
Angel.
a little goofy.
It is goofy.
And Eating the Cannibal, I think that's the name.
Eating the cannibal!
It's terrible.
You're allowed a stinker.
It's
Stop it.
terrible. But I love Bible Black, Follow the
Yes.
Tears, Breaking Into Heaven.
Yes.
There are some really great songs on here, but there's some stinkers on here too. And I think this was still a solid album. It's really enjoyable to listen to. And man, it just got back to that meat
Yes.
that the Dehumanizer had. And,
And
it
at
was
least
missed.
the stinkers were recorded well.
Yes.
Well, so this is my number because I didn't listen to the... I had no idea, dude. Wikipedia didn't have it listed as Black Sabbath. Not all the albums are on Spotify.
He wasn't paying attention when
Fucking
we told him to
Spotify.
add it. It's okay. We still love him.
I probably wasn't paying attention at some point. I was probably something salad related. But yeah, I mean, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jam this album and then I'll give you some sort of numerical rating, just probably a minute snippet on Instagram or something, because I don't want to leave everybody hanging who wants to know my opinion. It sounds like it's badass because these guys pretty much said it was badass. So yeah, let me do that. I had no idea. So that record is my number.
We love you, Ronnie James Dio.
For
We
sure.
miss you.
Miss you, brother.
So, as we've discussed earlier, Heaven and Hell technically was not a Black Sabbath release. We included it. So, if you consider that from 1995's Forbidden till the very next and last Black Sabbath album, which would be 2013's 13.
Yep.
This would be a original lineup with the exception of one. I remember reading this. Everyone was excited about this. At first, I was kind of bummed out because during this time, Tony Iommi also had announced that he was fighting cancer as well. And we had just lost, Dio not too long before that. So I was kind of worried that something was going to happen to Tony. However,
He's the Iron Man.
He is the Iron Man. The real story behind this was Bill Ward's involvement with it all. It started out like Bill was going to be a part of this all and a part of the 13 recording. Then there was a lot of internal conflicts with the band. A lot of the guys said... yeah, that's what I think too.
Money.
A lot of the guys said that Bill was no longer able to perform the way he should be able to perform. I think that very nasty woman, very nasty, maybe tremendously nasty, maybe the worst. Ryan jerks off all things Ozzy Osbourne. It's incredibly biased. She's very nasty. And yeah,
She kept him alive all these years, damn it.
it doesn't matter.
Hey.
She basically forced Bill Ward out of Black Sabbath due to money reasons. They weren't going to pay him. They basically were going to give the three of those guys the big shares and throw Bill Ward
Scraps
probably
off
the
the
same
table.
amount as like a touring
session
musician.
musician.
Yeah. And that's bullshit.
Yeah,
so
it is bullshit.
I saw him drum at Ozfest. He was fine.
I did too.
Yep.
He looked like he was going to die. His head weighed about 45 pounds. But he did a damn good job. And I saw the original lineup of Black Sabbath, and I will never, ever forget it.
Same here. It was awesome.
Good God.
good God.
The crowd humming the riff to
War
War
Pigs. Yep.
Yeah. Probably memorable as shit.
You can't see the gooses, but the gooses are there.
Oh, I feel.
Oh, but you can see the nipple. Sorry.
Gooses? Geeses?
The geese.
I want my goose to lay
You know
gold
what?
eggs for Easter.
This is an interesting thing here as well. Something that we don't realize. First of all, this is the first album since Eternal Idol in 1987 to where Jeff Nichols has not contributed some kind of keyboard.
No
To an album?
keyboards.
Yeah.
Get the keyboards out of Black
They are
Sabbath.
finally gone on 13. And then this is the very first album with Ozzy Osbourne since 1978. And here we are in 2013. So what's great about this album to me was my number 10. I really like this album. This is the classic Black Sabbath vibe, but with a modern sound and modern recording and modern heaviness. And this album kicks a lot of ass.
And the first couple songs being 8 or 9 minutes long. That was pretty
long
solid
tunes,
too.
just like the first album.
This is the-
Warning, Sleeping Village. They wanted to take you on a journey. Lots of tempo changes. That's what you want out of Black Sabbath. That's what I want.
This is the most doom-laden, depressive, heavy, nasty thing
In a
they
long-
In a very long
long
time.
time.
Like, this is my number 11. In my opinion, this album should have been... It should have replaced most of the garbage that happened
Yes.
in between. I wish this album could have been...
This should have came out after Dehumanizer.
Yeah,
Yes.
dude. Yeah, for real.
Yes.
For real. They should have done whatever the hell they did, and after Dehumanizer said, all right, we're taking a break, we got our own crap to do, and then 13 came out, because this is Black Sabbath, again. This is the closest thing to the real, the actual original Black Sabbath that they're ever...
You're going to get.
you're ever
'Cause
going to
they're
get.
done now.
Yep, because they're done now, but, I mean,
Finito.
I love that record.
I picked this as my number 8 album. After everything Black Sabbath has been through, they got back together and made a Black Sabbath album. The drummer, Brad Wilkes from Rage Against the Machine, pretty much didn't add his flair to it. You can hear it a little bit, but he was basically just a session player because he's solid and reliable.
Solid
and he
meat and potatoes.
Yep. Meat and potatoes,
Yep.
and he could
Yep.
do what Bill probably would have done. Maybe Bill would have got a little jazzier on certain things. But when we heard that Black Sabbath was going to do another album, this is what we wanted.
Yep.
It's what we,
Yep.
the best
Yep.
thing we could hope for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of course, Ozzy's layered and probably auto-tuned and a little studio trickery here and there, but he sang his balls off.
And it sounded
Yep.
good. That's all that
Yep.
matters.
He sang much lower in the register. He's not doing Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, But God is Dead.
Yep.
Zeitgeist is like Planet Caravan Part 2. It's very spacey. Not Kevin, but spacey. Atmospheric. Age of Reason had the Sabbath swing to it.
I love
Ozzy
that song.
throwing it down. Funky little bit of drums.
Yep.
Pariah. Classic
Pariah is
Sabbath
great.
banger.
Pariah is amazing.
Classic Sabbath sound. Damaged Soul, I wrote, Sabbath blues swing heavy as moose tits.
Well, some heavy titties.
Ozzy is singing as good as he can. They're at this point, they're what? In their early to
60s.
mid 60s?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're killing it, showing these youngsters that rip them off what they ripped off. Not Headless Cross, not Eternal Idol, Black fucking Sabbath, Volume 4, Masters of Reality. This is the Sabbath we wanted since
Forever.
Yes.
Mob Rules and blah, 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 Dehumanizer, blah, 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 blah. This is Black Sabbath. It's number 8. Their 13th album out of 20. What's their 20th album
Out of
13?
Yes, there you go.
Yes. Couldn't ask for anything better. Out of cancer and addiction and old
Yep.
people.
Yep.
Old, dirty British people.
They far exceeded the expectations.
At this point, they're rich.
Yep.
Old, dirty British people.
They have nothing to prove.
They're
They have
legends.
nothing to prove. And they're not trying to...
But they did, though. They did have something
Yes.
to prove.
Right.
That
Well,
they could
they
go
still
out,
had it.
You're right,
that they
yeah.
still had it, and that they could go out on top.
Yep.
And 13 was a perfect example that A, that band still has it,
Yep.
and B, that they went out on top.
For me, this album was number 6, so it went out top a little bit higher than you
Nice.
guys. I just love the fact that all the energy there, everything that was a hallmark thing of Sabbath was back.
Yes.
Like, it was doomy again, pretty much showing every doom metal band and every stoner metal band, like, hey, you know those riffs we loaned you years ago?
Here's
We're
some
taking
more.
them back.
We're taking them
right.
back.
Here's some more.
Rick Rubin's production I thought was really good. Granted, his thing is really compressed, but it sounded awesome. It just sounded thick and chunky. The bass tone is so nasty on this. Geezer sounded great. Brad Wilk did a good job too. I mean, he's a meat and potatoes guy. He's a solid pocket drummer. He's not going to do the flashy stuff that Bill Ward does, at least not on the album.
Right.
But he served each song well. And I think the lyrics seem a little bit more personal. Like they're talking about a band in their twilight of their years, that knowing pretty much that this is going to be it. Let's just go out and let's talk about all the stuff that over the years we've thought about, and let's just make a landmark album again. And they did. This is an amazing album. God is Dead, Age of Reason, Live Forever. I absolutely love that song.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an amazing album. I bought it the day it came out because I had a feeling it was going to be amazing.
I listened to this over at Uncle Buck's house with you and Ray and Will and Tyler and UB.
And it was delicious, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
It was delicious.
Wonderful slab of grimness.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the 20 album adventure that is Black Sabbath. Now, before we end it, we just need to very briefly talk about Black Sabbath. To me personally, this is the band that started it all with heavy metal. They planted the seed, and so many bands and genres and guitar players, drummers, bassists, and singers all modeled their styles, their lives, and their careers after these 4 individuals. Their impact on music and heavy metal will never be overstated. They are incredibly important, and to me personally, they're one of my favorite bands of all time. They are a band that constantly reminds me why music is a special thing
Yeah.
in this
for
crazy
real.
thing called life. So now that I'm done being a philosopher, basically, Joseph or Plato,
Sure.
I'll let you guys boys speak
I mean-
to the excellence of Black Sabbath.
Yep. I mean, I'll say this again. My history aside, and when I didn't start listening to this band, I'm such a giant fan of music. And again, like Joe says, I mean, this is the reason why. This is everything that I love about music and metal and the emotion that was here, and again, setting the tone and the stage for thousands and thousands of other bands, and like now I get where it all originates from, and I definitely listened to these and took them in, and I'm thankful for Sabbath.
As you all should be, my children.
Yeah.
We've never gone over a more influential band, and we've covered
Some influential
some
bands.
super.
Yeah.
We covered Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden possibly might not have existed without this band. Like, that's how big this is. And actually, Ren and I were talking a while ago that if Black Sabbath's debut album is the beginning of heavy metal, then It's been around for 50 years.
50 years this year.
50 years. Hell of a phase we're going through with this heavy music
Yeah.
thing and all that devil worshipping, but we're sticking with it. And Black Sabbath laid the foundation, and they're still just, it contributes daily. Like, there are tons of people out there that their first exposure to metal and heavy music might still be Black Sabbath. And they'll probably enjoy it as long as they don't listen to the terrible albums.
Right.
Just no.
Take the middle and just...
But yeah, I'm a huge fan. I have more appreciation for them now, more than ever, now that I've listened to everything. And I'm going to continue to listen to them.
Except
Except
for the crap.
Rock and roll existed before Black Sabbath. You had Elvis, you had the Beatles, you had Buddy Holly, you had Bill Haley, you had Little Richard. But heavy metal may or may not have existed without Black Sabbath. But Black Sabbath was the first heavy metal band. You had Deep Purple and you had Steppenwolf coined the phrase heavy metal, I guess heavy metal thunder. But if it was not for four dirty, poor, white trash dudes from Birmingham, England, working class, blue collar, with nothing to gain or to lose, 38 fingers amongst them, Black Sabbath set the stage for everything heavy metal. Somebody else may have done it, but Black Sabbath did it.
Yep.
Just like the Beatles. Somebody would have influenced Sabbath, Kiss, every other band, but the Beatles did it. Somebody else might have, but it was the Beatles. Metal was created by Black Sabbath. Bottom line. And their catalog is to be celebrated. Half of it. The other half.
I know that's right.
The other half, Tony should have just take a break, man. Take the late 80s, most of the 80s, and
Just
most
take
of
it
the
off.
90s off.
Yep.
Kick back. Laguna Sunrise. Natalie Portman's hair.
Go have a drink.
Bathe in it. But the 70s and their last two hors d'oeuvres, delicious main courses they gave us, Black Sabbath's record is the gospel for heavy metal fans. And God bless, or God damn, Black Sabbath forever and ever.
Either or will do.
Amen.
Praise Lucifer, brother! All right, mother truckers. If you enjoyed that incredibly fun discography ranking that we just did, and you have not already hit the like, subscribe, and follow button, please do that. Hit the like, subscribe, follow us, and hit the notification doorbell thingy-mabobber, which is technically following, but it allows you to be notified of when we put up cool content, because we put up cool content all the fucking time. So, be on the lookout. We're going to be doing a vinyl Black Sabbath video here in the not too distant future, and we will be throwing up a poll yet again to decide which crazy amazing band you motherfuckers are going to have us review. So on behalf of Thralls of Metal, all I have to say is, fairies wear boots, man. You've got to believe me. I've seen it. I've seen it with my own two eyes. Later.
Take care.